Good day, students. It's Mrs. Gore, and we are going to do another fun lesson today called Texts with Different Genres, okay? Comparing and contrasting. So we're going to use that skill that we've been working on and doing in some of the other lessons to complete this lesson today. This is for the 6th grade ELA, Sun Devil Learning Labs, and again, I'm Mrs. Gore. So let's look at our objective. Today, we're going to work on this right here, okay? I can compare and contrast texts in different forms or genres, stories, poems, fantasy, or plays. Okay, those are examples of the genres. That is our objective. Okay, so a vocabulary term that we're going to have today, we're just going to kind of focus on this one, and that is the word genre. And I think by 6th grade, we should have a pretty good idea of what a genre is, but if we don't, that's okay. It's basically something like the style of a piece of writing, or even it goes into even movies. So things that you can watch, plays, movies, songs even, music has genres. So it's the style. So down here it just says genres share characteristics and all genres have unique characteristics. Okay. And that's a little bit about genre. That's our one vocabulary word that we're going to kind of focus on today. Okay. And our purpose for the lesson is kind of it's the why. Why are we doing this? Why do we need to know this? Okay, so being able to compare and contrast different elements from all genres or types of texts helps us to better understand what we read. Okay, so if we know what type of text we're reading and we can identify those characteristics, we can understand a little bit more about what that text is all about. Okay, so think like fiction and nonfiction. If it's an informational text versus a fairy tale, they're going to be very different. They're going to have very different characteristics. And you're going to read those texts for a very different reason. Okay? And then your materials today, all you're going to need is a paper and a pencil. If you hear my chickens in the background, they're going a little crazy this morning. That was my rooster. But it's so nice outside. I thought I would just get outside. It's kind of cloudy, overcast day. I hope we're going to get our monsoons sometime soon. But clouds in the background and my chickens. So anyways, paper and a pencil is all you're going to need. Excuse me. All right, so this is our first, actually, I didn't give you time to run grab those materials. So go ahead and pause if you need to go grab a paper and a pencil. Just pause it and then restart it when you get back. Okay, so if you got your materials, this is our first thing that we're gonna do, just to kind of start off the lesson. So to begin, I want you to write down your 5 favorite movies or books. So go ahead and pause if you need to and write those down. Okay, so did you write down your favorite 5 favorite books or movies? If you have them in front of you, that way you can just kind of look at them. I've got some examples here, just some to show the variety of stories and types of movies or genres, right? These are different genres of movies. So you've got those 5 movies in front of you or books. And there's another question to kind of think about. So try to think about a time when someone wanted to watch a certain movie and you didn't. You didn't want to. So maybe you were in the mood for a different type of movie or genre. So look at your list that you have in front of you and try and think, are those all the same types of movies or do they fall into different categories? Do you have some comedy, maybe some cartoon movies like a Pixar movie or something of that nature? Do you have adventure in there? Maybe a horror movie, a scary movie? just based on your personal list of movies or books, do they fall into different categories or are they all the same type of movie? That's kind of the, if you had written down all 5 of your movies were, say, Marvel movies, you can those are in the same genre. You've got your comic book type, that they've made into like an action type movie. Those are the same genre. Or if you've added, maybe you like all the Harry Potter movies, those are all in the same genre. But if you've got a mixture of different types, like this screen shows here, you've got different genres. Okay, got a little bit of this is kind of an older Dracula movie, but it would still fall in that horror category, that suspense, that mystery, and scary. And then you've got Harry Potter, that's more fantasy. It's a little bit scary sometimes, but doesn't fall in the same category. It's not a horror movie. And then you've got something like The Dragons, How to Train Your Dragon. That would be a different genre than Harry Potter. That would be a different genre than Dracula. So I hope you see what I'm saying by genre. Okay, so that was just a fun little activity to kind of get your brain going there on genre. Okay. Or have you ever read a book and it reminded you of another book you read, or maybe a movie, a play, or a poem? So sometimes we read a book that maybe reminds us of a movie that's not even related to the book. It's just a similar storyline maybe, or similar characters possibly. Okay, so that's just another kind of question to have in your mind as we go along. Okay, think about those examples of those my little guys in the background. Hey, Trev, you almost done? He's playing in the yard while I do the video. Okay. So what we're going to be doing today is we'll be making text-to-text connections, which I'm sure you guys have experience with connections. So text-to-text between texts from different genres. Okay. And also, we will make connections about how each approaches similar themes and topics. So we're going to look for those similar themes and similar topics in all the different genres that we're going to go through today. Okay. Okay, so making those different connections. And as always, feel free to take any notes that you want to down. If there's just something you want to remember for later or a term that you want to write down, go ahead and do that. Okay. So genres, we talked a little bit briefly about them. This is just one example. I put fiction versus nonfiction. So those are two different genres. So these lists are going to show us the characteristics of each genre, and you'll kind of see how it's different. So if we run through, we're kind of going to go side to side. Sorry, I can't talk this morning. So fiction is going to be not real, whereas nonfiction is real. Fiction is like story talk. Nonfiction is fact talk. It's, all facts. It's informational. Fiction you're going to read to enjoy, whereas nonfiction you read to learn. Okay. Fiction is kind of a read in order. Like you're going to read a story and it's all going to go in order. Okay. There's a start and a finish. Nonfiction, it says read in any order. So it's really, articles, things like that you're going to read. Not a lot of structure to it all the time. Fiction has illustrations. Nonfiction has photos, charts, and graphs. Fiction is going to have your beginning, middle, and end, whereas nonfiction kind of has your table of contents. It has an index, a glossary, words in bold, and labels. Okay, those are things you don't find in fiction writing, only in those informational texts. So fiction also has characters and setting, and problem and solution, whereas nonfiction has true information and possibly directions, like a how-to would be a nonfiction type writing. So there's those two genres compared against each other, okay, or contrasted against each other. So here's our different genres of fiction. So just within that heading of fiction, there's a lot of different little subheadings in there. So there's a lot of different types of fiction writing. So these are some examples of fiction texts. So you have your fairy tales, myths, science fiction, graphic novels, fantasy, legends, realistic fiction. You have your dramas and plays, your fables, tall tales, poetry, and mystery. So you can kind of see all of those are different types of texts, but they are all fiction. Okay, hope that makes some sense there. Okay, now we have nonfiction genres. So again, under that nonfiction heading, that true writing, you also have these kind of subtexts. So you have informational, you've heard of biographies and autobiographies. Those would be nonfiction because they're true. And any sort of history would be a nonfiction, in that nonfiction genre. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, just kind of reiterating, kind of revisiting that point. Just because genres are different from each other, they can still share similar ideas, themes, morals, lessons, language, and more. Okay, so we kind of showed the different genres, but we were also saying that they could all be compared to each other and share things that are similar. Even if you've got that fiction and nonfiction going on, there could be similarities, okay? A similar theme or idea, okay? Oh, let me move myself around. So short stories and poems can be similar topics. Fairy tales and realistic fiction can have similar problems or solutions. Science fiction and mysteries can share the same idea of a hero and a villain. So those are just some breakdowns, some little ways to look at it, if you want to kind of think of it that way. If you want to compare a short story and a poem or a fairy tale, realistic fiction, and that's really what we're going to do today. We're going to compare a couple of pieces with each other, and those pieces are in different genres, but they are, you're going to see how they share similar ideas or themes. Okay, so that's today's lesson. So before we jump into like our first story, I just want to point out that when we are comparing and contrasting, especially stories, something that might be fiction or even a nonfiction story like a biography or autobiography, you want to compare these 4 items to be sure that you're comparing the story accurately and appropriately. You'd want to look at characters, setting, the plot, and any theme or message that's being taught in the story. So those are the 4 things you want to make sure you hit on. And you can always make some sort of a graphic organizer, maybe a bubble chart, something that you can write down those points in. So those 4 main points, okay? And we'll revisit these at the end just so you kind of remember to always look at these 4 points when you're comparing stories. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the 4 parts of the story we compare. Let's go into our kind of first story here. Not sure what this is doing. Let's see, go to my next slide. Okay, so this story is going to be kind of a summary of a story that I hope everyone's familiar with. If you're not, we're going to just do a summary, like a recap of the story so that we can use the story to compare to something else, okay? So I've just summarized the story about Aladdin, okay? So as we know, the story of Aladdin has been both a movie and a play, and it's a summary, and I believe from the research I did, it kind of originated from an older written story. So that had been kind of rewritten and different things, and then it was turned into a movie, and it's also a play. I've actually seen Aladdin as a local play that our local summer youth program did for a play one year, and it was really, really amazing, even in that format. So movie, play, possible written work. This is a summary for those not familiar with Aladdin. So I'm just going to read through it. Feel free to read through it with me or pause it if you want to read the story on your own. Okay. So the story follows a poor but carefree street person in an Arabian city. He meets and falls in love with Princess Jasmine, the daughter of the Sultan, which is like a king. He soon has in his hands a genie lamp and a genie who grants Aladdin 3 wishes. He finds that evil has another plan for the lamp and for Princess Jasmine. Aladdin uses his wishes to impress Princess Jasmine and make her think that he is something that he isn't, a prince. He is faced with Jasmine finding out who he really is in order to save her from the evil Jafar. In the end, she is in love with who he really is, not what he really is, and they live happily ever after, and so does the newly freed genie. Okay, so that's just a really, really fast rundown of Aladdin, so we can remember what the story is about. And for those of you who've never watched it, that's a little rundown for you. So a little summary. Okay, so now on the left side of the screen here, I have just a very, very short song lyric that is by the Imagine Dragons. And I don't know if hopefully you guys are familiar with them. My kids love Imagine Dragons. So, and I love their music and they have a lot of good messages. But this on the left is just a very, very small chunk of one of their songs. So if we read through it, it says, "It's time to begin, isn't it? I get a little bit bigger, but then I'll admit I'm just the same as I was. Now don't you understand that I'm never changing who I am?" Okay? So what I wanted to point out is this right here. So what is a common theme in these song lyrics and the theme of the story Aladdin? Okay, we just read Aladdin, and we just read these song lyrics. And I'll leave them here for a moment just so you can kind of, if you want to read them again. But we're looking for a common theme in these two, okay? Like we said, one is a fictional story. It could be also called a play because it has been a play. And the other is actually song lyrics, which I would compare to poetry. Okay, so they're different mediums, if you will. We talked about mediums in the last lesson. They're just different ways of getting to that text. We're either reading it in a story, we're reading a poem, listening to it in a song. These are all different genres, okay? So what is a common theme between these two? So what I have here, I want you to recreate on your own paper. It's just a simple Venn diagram. And the interlocking circles, like they are, shows us that we're going to put the characteristics of the song on one side. We're going to put the characteristics of the Aladdin movie or play on the other side. And then what they have in common is going to go in this middle section where it says both. Okay? So comparing song, lyrics to Aladdin, the story. Okay? So what you can do is go ahead and pause the video at this moment and take just a couple minutes and jot down some of the things that you noticed about the song and that you noticed about the play, or maybe what you noticed about both. If you see the similarities between both first, go ahead and write it in that category that says both. And we are going to fill this in together in just a moment and hopefully see it all come together. So go ahead and pause and fill out your Venn diagram as best you can. Okay, so hopefully you had time to work on that Venn diagram on your own. And right now we're going to go to the next slide, which is going to be us kind of, completing it together here. Okay, so I filled in some of the things that jumped out at me. And you may or may not have these same things, that's okay. So if we're just looking at the song itself, I noticed that the song doesn't have characters, right? Because it's a very, very short piece of a song lyric. It doesn't have characters, it's not a story. So that's the next one, it's not a story, right? It is lyrics of a song. And I went ahead and put it in first person because the singer of the song is saying I, right? I'm never changing who I am. So it's a first person account of somebody's story, somebody's, uh, thoughts put down on this song, which is very, very similar to a poem. Okay, and if we just look over here on the right and we're just thinking about the story of Aladdin, I wrote down, it has fictional characters. It has a story with plot elements. Okay, so that beginning, middle, end, that climax, it's the whole story, not just a tiny little piece of something. And it's a fiction fairy tale genre. Okay, so if you look at the comparisons, we're comparing a song to a story, which is like sort of comparing a poem to a story. But then in this middle category, we've got our comparisons, right? We have what is the same? What is the same about these two? Even though they seem to be completely unrelated to each other, what is the same about both of them? So they both have a message about being yourself, okay? And it's always best to be you. That's what, to me, these two pieces are both saying, okay? The Imagine Dragons song, he says, I'm never changing who I am, okay? And then in Aladdin, we know that he pretends to be something that he's not in order to impress the princess. But we know that by the end of the movie, he realizes, I need to just be myself. Trying to impress her with all these fancy things is not working, okay? Be yourself. Okay, so that's how we compare two totally different genres to one another. Okay, and we're going to do it again with another couple of pieces of text. And we're going to do another Venn diagram, so make sure you have enough paper to go ahead and do a second Venn diagram. Plus, there's going to be a little bit of writing at the very, very end. So just make sure you've got enough paper in front of you. And if you don't, go ahead and pause and go grab some more paper. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to the next theme. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to read through this poem. Okay, this is another piece of poetry. It is another Robert Frost poem, and I know that we read a Robert Frost in my last lesson. I love his poetry, and so let's read through this one. And like I said, we're going to take this poem, we're going to compare it to a different text. So just be thinking really hard about what this poem is saying and some of the characteristics. And if you want to write them down so you don't forget later, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and take some notes on it. Okay, I'm going to do my best to read this poem. I probably won't do as good as some people would, but let's just read through. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay? So just be thinking about what that poem was saying, some of the words that were used, maybe the setting of the poem, if you can remember the setting and what this author of this poem is doing in this poem. He's walking along, he kind of seems to come to a crossroads and has to make a decision about where to go. Just remember all those key points of the poem. And what we're going to do right now, I'm going to go ahead and leave this poem up. And what I want to do is read you a story. And it's a little bit of a longer children's book, but it is the Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. And I know I've referenced this book in another lesson that I did, but I really think it's great to compare this book to this particular poem, and you'll see why, I hope. So let's go ahead and read and just kind of sit back and relax. Take any notes that you would like to take on this as we go along. Okay? And I know you guys are sixth graders, but I think this book applies to anybody from birth all the way till you're 100 years old. It's just a great book. Okay, so just listen along. I probably won't be able to show you as many pictures from it, like as if we were in person, but just listen to the words and think about them in comparison to the poem we just read. Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know. And you are the guy who will decide where to go. You'll look up and down streets, look them over with care. About some you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not so good street. And you may not find any you'll want to go down. In that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. It's opener there in the wide open air. Out there, things can happen and frequently do to people as brainy and footsy as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew. Just go right along, you'll start happening too. Oh, the places you'll go. You'll be on your way up, you'll be seeing great sights. You'll join the high flyers who soar to high heights. You won't lag behind because you'll have the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be best of the best. Wherever you go, you will top all the rest. Except when you don't, because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say, but sadly it's true, that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You can get all hung up in a prickly perch, and your gang will fly on. You'll be left in a lurch. You'll come down from that lurch with an unpleasant bump, and the chances are then that you'll be in a slump. And when you're in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. You will come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're darked. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Do you dare to stay out? Do you dare to go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And if you go in, should you turn left or right? Or right and 3/4, or maybe not quite? Or go around back and sneak in from behind? Simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find, for a mind maker-upper to make up his mind. You can get so confused that you'll start into race down long wiggled roads at a breaknecking pace, and grind on for miles across weirdish wild space, headed, I fear, toward a most useless place, the waiting place. For people just waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. No, that's not for you. Somehow you'll escape all that waiting and staying. You'll find the bright places where boom bands are playing. With banner flip-flapping once more you'll ride high, ready for anything under the sky. Ready because you're that kind of guy. Oh, the places you'll go. There is fun to be done. There are points to be scored. There are games to be won. And the magical things you can do with that ball will make you the winningest winner of all. Fame, you'll be famous as famous can be, with the whole world watching you win on TV. Except when they don't, because sometimes they won't. I'm afraid that sometimes you'll play lonely games too. Games you can't win because you'll play against you. All alone, whether you like it or not, alone will be something you'll be quite a lot. And when you're alone, there's a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. There are some down the road between hither and yon that can scare you so much you won't want to go on. But on you will go, though the weather be foul. On you will go, though your enemies prowl. On you will go, though the hacking cracks howl. Onward up many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore and your sneakers may leak. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far, and face up to your problems, whatever they are. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with some strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact. And remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left. And you will succeed. Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. So, be your name Buxbaum or Bixby or Bray, or Mordecai Ali Van Allen O'Shea. You're off to great places. Today's your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. Okay, guys, so the places you'll go. Now, we've read that story. Maybe you've taken a couple of notes throughout, or just remembering the theme of the book. That's what we're going to kind of focus on. What is the theme of the places you'll go and the road not taken? Is there a similar theme, even though one of them is a poem and one of them is a fictional children's story? Okay, this is our little Venn diagram that I told you we're going to make one more Venn diagram. This is the last one, but I want you to do the same thing we did earlier. Just pause the video and go ahead and fill this in. You want to put the characteristics of the poem over here. You want to give the characteristics of the story over here, and anything that they share goes in the middle. So go ahead and pause the video, work for just a couple minutes, fill in your diagram, and then we'll move on. Okay, you guys ready to go ahead and go over this together? We're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what I had on my Venn diagram, and we will talk about it together. Hopefully you've already kind of got an idea about the theme, and it's starting to actually, believe it or not, sprinkle on me out here. So I might have to move inside. Yep, I think I'm gonna have to move inside. So let me go ahead and pause the video and I will be right back. Okay, I'm so excited right now. It's actually raining outside. I actually had to move inside because it started raining. So I got my wish for the day. I hope wherever you are, you're getting some rain too. It's much needed. Okay, so we read our story, we worked on our Venn diagram, looking at the similarities and the differences between the two, and filling that in. So hopefully you got to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide where I have filled in the Venn diagram to the best of my abilities, okay? Lots of information on these two, just because it was a longer poem and it was a longer story than we dealt with before. So we're gonna see a little bit more information on this Venn diagram. And of course, feel free to fill your diagram in with any of this information that you'd like to put on yours. This is just what jumped out at me. So first we're gonna talk about the poem. Okay, so The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. First of all, it is poetry. That's its genre. Okay, that's the genre that it's in, is poetry. Paints a scene of a fork in the road with one being a more difficult path. Okay. The first person narrator, because it says I, right? He's talking about himself. I am doing this, first person. I noticed there was like an inner conflict going on. He's struggling to make a decision which way to go. That's what I take from the poem. And again, poetry is so unique that if you took something else from it, that's fine too. And I put down here, it could be fiction or nonfiction. We don't really know if this poem is based on, it's probably based on somebody's actual life. It could just be a completely fictional, piece of work, a poem that someone just wanted to write out of their own mind. Maybe it didn't actually happen to someone. But I guess we've all had those points in life where we have had to make a decision, which way to go. So it probably on some level is true. Okay, so then if we look at Oh, the Places You'll Go, okay, it outlines many things that you will encounter in life in a silly way. That's kind of what it's about if you think about the book. Written in the narrator's voice, but speaking to you. So it's not them talking about themselves necessarily, like I'm doing this or I'm doing that. It's more like this is what you will encounter in your life, okay? There are many silly fictional characters, and it's a fictional story. Okay, so Dr. Seuss, again, he probably wrote it with an experience of his own in mind, but it is a fictional storybook. Okay, so two different genres, fictional storybook and a poem, and we're going to compare them right now when we go into the both category. Okay, so they both have rhyme. They're kind of a rhyming poem. Even the Places You'll Go, there's a rhyming element to that book, and there's a rhyming element to the poem that we read. So they're both rhyming poems. They're both about making decisions. They both talk about this metaphorical crossroads in life. Metaphor means you're comparing something to something else, right? You're basically saying life is a highway. Have you heard that metaphor before? Life is a highway. Or life is a winding road. That would be a metaphor. So metaphorical crossroads in life, where he's having to make a decision, right? You'll have difficult journeys in life. That's kind of a common theme to both of them. Sometimes a difficult road leads to a better outcome. That's what I took away from especially the poem, but also the book. Okay, and both of them, although fictional, could be fictional, they are based on real life because real life is the topic of both of these. Okay, real life decisions, crossroads, making a decision, all of that. I hope you took away from these two pieces, something similar to what I have here. And if not, it would be awesome to know what you took away from these two pieces. So I hope you can see the difference in the genres, that one is a poem and one is a story, but also see the comparisons between the two. Even though they're different genres, they have a lot of comparisons. Look at this middle category. That was a tongue twister. They have similarities, and we listed quite a few. Okay, so that is your Venn diagram for The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost and Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. Okay. So to kind of wrap up the lesson, when you are asked to compare and contrast texts from different genres with the same theme or topic, this is how it is broken down. Using a Venn diagram or a similar graphic organizer helps to organize your information. Okay, so just what we did right now would help you on any lesson that you would have to compare and contrast, even similar genres, because you might be asked to compare two texts from the same genre, or you might be asked to compare two texts from different genres. So either way, you can use this method. Today we did different genres, same idea, same theme, okay? So when you're comparing stories, again, this is something we talked about in the beginning, what are the main points that you want to make sure that you compare? Characters, setting, the plot, and the theme or message. Those are four big points to hit when you're comparing and contrasting. Okay, so I hope that helped you. This is our little writing extension that I want to do. And I think probably if we read through this and then you pause the video for about 10 minutes, then you can come back and you can share in my writing extension that I did. So I went ahead and did the assignment along with you, and I can share that with you after you take about 10 minutes or so, pause the video, and do your own writing thing. So let's read through the writing extension, and then we'll pause the video. Okay, so I want you to write a 5-sentence paragraph making a text-to-self connection. Okay, so we did text connections in the lesson. I want you to do a text-to-self from either the poem, The Road Less Traveled, or the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. Compare these texts to an experience from your own life. Okay, so that's the 5-sentence writing extension. Okay, and I did the same assignment. And so if you want to write at this moment, pause the video, 10 minutes, work alone, and then come back. Okay, so I hope you guys went ahead and did the writing extension. It's only 5 sentences. So I think for 6th graders, that wouldn't be too difficult, but it would allow us to kind of elaborate on that experience that you had. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you mine that I wrote up, just so you can see what I'm talking about when I say make a text-to-self connection between the 2 texts that we read. Okay, so this is mine on the right, and I'll just read it aloud to you. You can read along, follow along. The decision to become a teacher, for example, is taking a road that not many travel. When you already have a lot on your path, adding a commitment like college is not a turn that some would take. However, learning and growing with each mile is rewarding, and it is leading somewhere great. So I am staying my course and pursuing my education. I will get to the end of this road, and it will be just as the road less traveled shows us. Worth it. Okay, that's what I had in mind for a 5-sentence paragraph to make a text-to-self connection to one of these texts. So do you see how I kind of use the same wording? In mine, I used a lot of words that had to do with, taking a road that not many travel. You already have a lot on your path. Turn that some would take. Each mile, leading somewhere great. Staying my course. Get to the end of the road. Okay, so you see how I kind of use some of the same terminology to stay with that road less traveled kind of a theme. So I hope that shows you a little writing extension that you can do. You can always do this kind of stuff in your journals or on a sheet of paper. Just write down your experiences like this and make those connections. Okay, so we're just going to go over the objective one more time so that we really know what we did today in this lesson. So I can compare and contrast texts in different forms or genres, meaning stories, poems, fantasy, plays. Those are just some examples of genres. So the 4 genres we dealt with today, or well, we didn't deal with 4 different genres. We dealt with poetry in the terms of the lyrics of the song and the poem by Robert Frost. We dealt with a short story in Oh, the Places You'll Go, kind of a children's fictional story. And then we dealt with Aladdin, which is kind of a longer story, but it's also a play. So if we were to get the actual script for that play, we would actually be dealing with a play. It's also a movie, it's also a story. So we dealt with a lot of different genres today, and we compared and contrasted those genres. So I hope this lesson was helpful, and I hope that it'll help you when you have to compare and contrast in the future. So awesome job today, you guys, and thanks again for being here. Have an awesome day. I hope it's raining where you are because it's raining here, or it did for a little while. Feels like it's already stopped out there, but that's okay. We'll take what we can get. So you guys have an awesome day. We'll see you next time.